I've spent the last years of my life crossing Europe, north and south, east and west, meeting hundreds of movements, thousands of activists, trying to say that alternatives exist, that we can break out of a rigged economy and a rigged democracy, we can transform Europe bottom up. And I always said this with conviction, with real belief. And yet, there are moments, when doubt creeps in. When I myself think that perhaps this is not something that we can actually achieve. Over the last years, we have seen a proliferation of manifestos, movements, campaigns that demand another Europe. And yet, the direction of travel is stubbornly wrong. The policies continue to be wrong. Democracy continues to retrench in front of our very eyes. And so more and more people turn away from the idea that Europe can be transformed, that Europe can be reformed, that change is possible. And I understand this feeling. I feel this sometimes in me. I feel this in many of the people that I speak to. And when I do this, I do like my grandfather. I go back to history. And I look at our past, and I tell myself that 150 years ago, slavery was legal in the United States. That 100 years ago, when my grandfather was learning how to speak and then was going to school, we inhabited a time when if you were a poor worker and you could not afford a doctor, you were left to die of curable illnesses. A time when if you were a white man, you felt you had a right and indeed a duty to go and colonize and exploit anybody who had a darker shade of skin than yours. A time when if you were a woman, you were not allowed to vote, and certainly you were not allowed to disobey your husband. A time 50 years ago, let's go closer to our era, just 50 years ago, when racial segregation was still reality in the United States of America. When 25 years ago, racial segregation was still a reality in South Africa. Every one of us will have many more stories to add to this, but the bottom line is one. Over the last 100 years, we have won. People like us have managed to emerge from a system so corrupt, so barbarous, as to be unspeakable. We have done this, and how have we done this? We have done this through the power of popular mobilization. We could not have done it without the labor movement. We could not have done this without the feminist movement. We could not have done this without the ecological movement, without the anti-racist and the anti-colonial movement, and many more. Today, the challenge we have in front of us is to return to be part of this glorious tradition. And yes, the time is ripe for a pan-European political movement that has the crazy ambition of turning this continent upside down from the bottom up.